Chamber patrons, members, visitors, and our blended audience today. It's a real pleasure to host this session for you. We are recording it today. And of course, we're celebrating International Women's Day. We are delighted to be able to welcome a range of panelists that we're going to talk to. I think we could probably have a session on each one of them in their own right, but we're going to get through as much as we can in the next hour or so. So huge welcome to Carol Massey. Good morning, Carol. Also, good morning to Cheryls, who's joining us on the panel.
Hi, everyone.
Good morning to Shayna Doherty. Thank you.
Morning, everyone.
And a huge thank you to our patron and sponsor for today, Croft Communications. We have Julia Bunting. Julia, a very warm welcome to you.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
So I mentioned before we're going to record the session. It's going to be quite informal insofar as we really want to hear your voices. We want to hear the colorful language of what International Women's Day means to you, challenges, opportunities, support, and so on and so forth. But before I ask Julia just to offer a few words, I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about International Women's Day, for those of you who do or do not know. It's a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. Did you know it's the 110th anniversary of that special day today? And in fact, in 1908, a group of 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter hours, better pay, and voting rights. And I'm sure some people on the call today will say, are we still trying to champion the same issues? So that's a little bit about it. I would also encourage you to share this experience on social media. So if you can use the hashtag, which is global IWD21, perhaps one of my colleagues can put that into chat for you. And also hashtag Hearts Chamber. We'd be really grateful. So we can't put on these events without wonderful sponsors. And I'm really delighted to be able to hand over to Julia Bunting for a few minutes just to express, tell us a little bit about Croft Communications and her role and her journey. So over to you, Julia.
Thank you, Mary, and welcome to you all to this event. It's really great to be a part of these sorts of activities. Looking down the delegate list and looking at your faces now, lots of familiar people to me, but for those of you that don't know who I am, as Mary rightly said, I'm Julia Bunting. I joined Croft Communications 2 months ago as their Director of Customer Success, but I've been working in leadership positions within Hertfordshire for a number of years. Both myself and Croft are very honoured to be a part of this event today, and I believe I am joined by my amazing colleague, Helen Galloway, who's our Director of Sales Operations, and Casey Peasnell, who is our new Marketing Manager, both of which I have a huge amount of respect for. I'm really proud and very, very lucky to work for an organisation that isn't only shaping the business communication landscape through our mobile, our unified communications and our connectivity offerings, but also one that considers it a pivotal role for women in business. And we have been very lucky to secure a number of very powerful women that are making a difference in every single department within our organisation. At the end of February last year, I joined a huge amount of you at the Hearts Chamber Women in Leadership Conference at Sockwell House, which was a sellout event. And I suppose that demonstrated the commitment to Hertfordshire's women when it comes to gender equality and women in the workforce. This year's focus is on achieving an equal future in a post-COVID world. Very often as women, we place a huge amount of pressure on ourselves to be amazing business women, incredible mothers, fabulous wives, without ever stopping to recognise our own achievements and the contribution we make to the world around us. And to be quite honest, I feel like I'm winning if I can answer my daughter's daily question, what is for pudding? So, we need to obviously appreciate the strides that we make in our daily lives, whether it's in a professional or a social capacity. Which brings me on really nicely to a story, and I did share this last year at the Women in Leadership conference. It was about 3 years ago. My eldest daughter, Sophie, had to complete a piece of work about somebody inspirational in her life. And to my amazement, she wrote a story about me because of my achievements in running the London Marathon. And this was a fabulous example of how our daily lives have such a huge impact on the people around us, people who might be Hertfordshire's inspirational women of the future. Obviously, being part of Croft, technology is changing the world for the better, and women are shaping the future with exciting innovations. And we are helping to shape those paths for our daughters, our nieces, our granddaughters, and for generations to come. We've seen huge leaps in women gaining successful careers in STEM and construction, industries that have historically been incredibly male dominated, which I guess leads me on nicely to the inspirational women that we have today. And I'm really excited to hear what they have to say as well. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for enabling us to sponsor such an important and an exciting event. And I hope everyone has a really great time and gets a lot from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you to you and your colleagues. Welcome to Helen. And we'll look forward to hearing a little bit more from you if you've got some questions for our panelists as we go through. So before we get started with the introductions that I'd love to offer to you about our speakers or our panelists today, we'd like to run a poll. And so this will be interactive. For those of you who have done this before, you'll see that a question will come up in front of you and you'll be given some multiple choices. And we'd ask you all to please answer anonymously and honestly. So the question is for poll 1, what do you think the biggest challenges are for women in business? Now, my colleagues have put up onto the screen, you can see work-life balance, gender bias, equal pay, not enough female role models, sexual harassment, having children, and a career. Please, would you submit your answers now? And if by magic, I'm sure that the poll will be answered as soon as all of the figures have been summarized. And I will look forward to bringing those results to you. Sarah, are those results going to be available now, or shall we come back to those?
I can display them now if you'd like to see them, Mary.
That would be lovely. Thank you. Wow, so 56% of people, that doesn't sound like a surprise. Work-life balance. Absolutely agree with you. Gender bias follows, equal pay, not enough female role models, sexual harassment, and having children and a career. I'm really pleased to see that sexual harassment is at the end of that poll. Nevertheless, 4% of people have experienced it. So let's continue to address that and aim for equality and diversity with acceptance in the workplace. So thank you so much, everybody, for participating on that. We'll close that poll now. Right, on to our panelists. It is such a pleasure to welcome Carol, Cheryl, and Shayna. But I'd like to start with Carol Massey. Carol is a wonderful advocate for the Chamber. She's also involved in on our board, so we thank her very much. But she is head of construction for Access UK. She's got 30 years of experience working in the construction sector and 18 years within construction technology. She's worked for one of the top 10 house builders. She also worked for an Irish-based civil engineering and building contractor. For over 14 years, she worked to improve the reporting of financial and project information. And with that experience, Carol moved into construction technology specifically. She wants businesses to embrace technology to promote a more efficient way of working. And we know that the construction industry needs to embrace more of that. In addition, she has been a senior implementation consultant, a head of professional services, a strategic relationship manager, and she has relationships with top 100 construction UK companies. She is a great networker, and you must follow Carol on LinkedIn if you don't. Over the last 5 years, Carol has headed up the 4 Years Award-winning construction software company EasyBuild. And during that time, she's increased business growth, market presence, and has a great team helping her deliver that. So we welcome Carol, and I'd like to start by, well, certainly, good morning, Carol. How are you?
Morning, Mary, and morning, everyone on this session today. I'm delighted to be here with so many faces that I've seen as a member of the Chambers, but also hoping to see once we're all out of lockdown. So thank you for all joining and taking the time.
Brilliant. Carol, I've got a question for you, and I'm sure that our delegates will have questions as we get through the program today. But the first question is for you. What has the biggest challenge or opportunity been working in the construction sector, which I have to say, I think we often generalize and think is fairly male dominated?
So the biggest challenge, and you know, construction, when you talk about it or historically talk about it, is always been that male dominated environment. And the perception is it's, you know, big fingers, muddy boots, hard hats, and kind of a sector type that in the past women would, you know, think, well, no, there's definitely not a role for me to be out on site. So for me, as you mentioned, Mary, I worked in a construction company, and, you know, I understood the challenges that, you know, was involved in running a construction project. The challenge that was faced to me was that not so much when I worked in a construction business, it was more as my journey evolved into construction technology was, again, I was around individuals, whether it was sales and operations that were male dominated. So a lot of sales executives that were suited and booted. So the challenge there was for me was that I was faced with, you know, trying to compete against the norm, and the norm being that sales execs were male predominantly, and the sector was predominantly construction, which was men. So, but for me, I used it as an advantage because I understood construction. I could say that I've worked in construction, understand all the terminology. So in a roundabout way, I took that as, actually, that's my advantage. I'm a female. I could use that female approach and knowledge to actually take something that I thought previously, and maybe others here may think, you know, when something's more about male, that it's actually a barrier to what you can do. But if you look on the flip side, if you're really passionate and knowledge about what you actually know about the sector that you've chosen and use it to your advantage, what is there to actually, you know, stop you from upping your game and doing what you actually enjoy? So yes, it was and a challenge at that point, but I took it as a different way to say, well, hold on a minute, I want to be successful, and I'm putting a lot of commitment as a mum with a young family. As I started to my career path, I wanted to make sure that, you know, that my journey was going to be something that I could look back and impart on my children, that, you know, it was worth doing.
Excellent. And I'm sure we're curious to know, do you have that pair of muddy boots alongside all of the rest of it?
Yes, I have, and my hard hat.
Very, very good.
So I've got, yes.
And you know, I think we need more role models, particularly in certain industries, and you're one of those. And we'll come back to you if we may, Carol. So thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you.
Next joining our panel is Cheryl Luzette, CEO of Wagata Digital Marketing. Good morning, Cheryl.
Hello, hi everybody. Nice to be here.
Lovely to have you here. Cheryl and her company, Wagata, which she founded, have been Chamber patrons certainly for the last 18 months, if not longer, and we're really grateful for your support. But I'd like to tell everybody on the call today a little bit more about Cheryl and her background before I go to a question. So Cheryl Luzette is CEO of multiple award-winning digital marketing agency, Wagata. They're based in St. Albans, but they also have a second location, I understand, that I'll let Cheryl tell you about in a moment. She previously held management roles in the travel industry, publishing, and the NHS. She set up her agency in 2011. She now employs 14 people, so fantastic result. She supports clients all over the globe. I think we've seen with digital technology now, we're probably represented from all over the globe, so it's no surprise, but congratulations. Cheryl's very passionate about client success and watching their businesses grow alongside her company. Digital marketing is challenging and it's ever changing. So she's always keeping up with current training and development, and it's at the forefront of everything that WAGATA do. In 2021, this year, Cheryl, congratulations, was recognized as one of the UK's 100 most inspirational female entrepreneurs by Small Business Britain's F Entrepreneur #IAlso100 campaign. Congratulations, Cheryl. That's really recent. Tell us a little bit more about that, and then I'm going to ask you your question, if I may.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's quite an exciting campaign because it recognises the different roles that women play in society, and I think we don't always recognise that as women, we're not just, you know, accountants or lawyers or whatever it is we do. We're also mums, and we could be caring for elderly people as well. So I think those kind of caring responsibilities, it does add an extra burden to us, so that when women do achieve in the workplace, I do think there is more to it than when a man can just walk out the door at 7 in the morning and come back at 7 in the night, and then, you know, dinner's on the table. It's all great.
Exactly. And in actual fact, the question for you that I've got is family life versus career aspirations. How do you juggle the two? And I know you personally do it, but it would be wonderful for other people to hear your experience of how you juggle those.
Yeah, I guess the way I work is I don't necessarily try and separate the two. I very much keep both of them on at the same time. So the reason why I set up my business was because when I had to go back to work after having my second child, I added up the cost of childcare and my train fare into London, and I worked out I would only earn £5 a day. So, but I actually did need to work. My husband's a teacher. He's not got a big salary, so he can't afford to pay the mortgage. So we were in a bit of a quandary, really. I obviously wasn't going to go back to work in London for £5 a day. So I decided, at least if I could work locally, then at least I wouldn't have to pay the train fare. So that would be something at least. So I set up my business and very much tried to juggle everything because I wanted to be there for the children. You know, I don't think I've been that person that necessarily wanted to have a big career. I wanted to spend time with my children. You know, I think I wanted to have that period with them. So I very much tried to juggle everything. So you know, I very much arrange my days around the times that I can spend with the children, and then I try and work around other times. So I do quite a lot of work in the evenings and at weekends. You know, quite often get up early and do a couple of hours before they get up. And it just allows me to kind of have that kind of work-life balance. I guess it's more work-family balance. There's not a lot of life going on there, but you know, I guess it's just what you have to do when you have young children and you're trying to do two different things at once. But it's been a great experience. You know, my business is 10 years old this year, so certainly have no regrets. It's been a fabulous sort of ride and a good journey to get here.
Well, congratulations, 10 years, and it's the 110th anniversary of International Women's Day. So you've got a good relationship there. And we'll come back to you if you can, Cheryl. I think I can see a hand up from Lauren McCoy, but if you've got a question, perhaps we can just wait till we've got through our third panelist, if that's all right. So I next am going to welcome Shayna Doherty, founder of Generosity Bank. Good morning, Shayna.
Good morning, Mary. Hi, everyone.
Lovely to have you here with us. So I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Shayna. She's held senior digital marketing positions at global advertising agencies, entertainment, and ad tech companies for 15 years. In this year, January 2021, Shayna was named by Small Business Britain's F Entrepreneur as one of our UK top 100 most inspirational female entrepreneurs. Again, a huge accomplishment. We're joined by award winners. Thank you. Shayna has founded 2 companies, Magnify Solutions in the UAE, which is an ad tech and digital solutions reseller for the MENA region, and Generosity Bank here in the UK. What is Generosity Bank? Well, it's an online platform that connects professionals with small business owners that are in need of low-level help and advice. Shayna created Generosity Bank so professionals can support their community by offering their time through flexible, skill-based volunteering without worrying about long-term commitment. Generosity Bank was listed in the Small Business 100 for 2020 and it's part of the Hertfordshire Chamber of Commerce's Entrepreneur Foundation and received national recognition as one of the faces for the Foreign and Commonwealth Office's 2020 Great Inspirations campaign. Shayna, what more can I say? You've been busy.
It's been a busy year for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Can you just tell us a little bit more? I know you've got a business in UAE, it mentions, but just in your own words, the experience of setting up Generosity Bank, I guess, in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, so I mean, the idea for Generosity Bank was actually sort of something that I came up with 2 years prior to actually launching last year. It was always, helping in the community has always been something that I've done whilst, juggling all my other roles, working full time, being a mum, wife, and all the other things that go along with being a woman in general. So, when the pandemic happened, I was sort of like really, really close to finalizing the platform. And I thought, actually it's an awful time for small business owners at the moment. And actually I've got something here that could potentially help and could potentially bring small business owners a little bit of relief. And then obviously there was this huge outpouring of support just from the public, everybody wanting to sort of like pitch in and do what they can. So in May last year, I decided to launch Generosity Bank as a way of sort of, saying, look, here's a platform that will enable small businesses to ask for help. And here's a platform that allows professionals to give their help as well. And one of the main reasons why people decide not to volunteer is because of time constraints. So through Generosity Bank, because it's all low-level help and it's a one-off and short-term, there's no long-term commitment, meaning that people can help, without having to worry about having to commit, long amounts of time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And the question that I've got for you to kick us off is, did you go to university and how did you build up your knowledge?
I didn't go to university actually. So I was really lucky because one of my very, very first jobs when I was really young was actually in the field that I wanted to be in. So I sort of consciously made the decision not to continue in education and actually follow my career path. And I, worked really, really hard, focused on moving up and moving forward and getting that promotion and moving companies. And, back then, digital marketing wasn't really a thing. So I was able to sort of like learn as I was going and learn on the job. And I suppose what that allowed me to do is sort of build up a wealth of knowledge, knowing and learning my skills right from the start. And yeah, I've sort of always been a really, really quick learner. So I've been able to sort of, learn things as I've gone on and sort of learn on the job, so to speak.
Excellent. I think it's a really important question to ask and to have your answer, because I think with all of the young students that are coming through right now, either with or without, tertiary education, they're wondering, what does the future hold? And I think you've said it, if you work really hard and you're passionate about what you do, you will succeed. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think you have to be passionate about what you're doing and you have to enjoy it. And I think for me, because I was doing something that I was genuinely interested in and genuinely wanted to learn and grow, that really helped.
Brilliant. Well, I would like to now come to you, our participants, our audience, for any questions for our panelists today or any observations. Now, I can see, I'm doing my very best to check the chat messages and also look at the hands that are up. And I can see that Lauren McCoy has a hand up, but her camera's off. So I'm not sure if you have a question, Lauren. Or maybe it wasn't a hand up, so not a problem at all. But I'm
sorry,
just gonna,
not a hand up, sorry. I can't see it to bring it down. It's not showing on my screen to bring it down. Sorry
that's
about
okay. That. It's lovely to hear your voice. Do you have an observation or a question at all?
Not at this time, but it's great content. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I'm going to go around the room. Do you know, it is fantastic to see everybody, but some of the backgrounds really stand out. So I feel like I'm at Buckingham Palace with Diane Saunders. I feel like I'm on a holiday in some of the others with lovely green backgrounds. And I really know what your businesses are with others. So I'm making a quick look around to see if there are any questions. I do have some already, but if there aren't any that are pressing, I'd like to also show a little bit of support for the British Chamber of Commerce, because Briege Leahy, who is our CEO and who's on the call today, hello Briege, has advised me some really exciting news that our new Director General at the British Chamber of Commerce is a female. She's appointed just today, and her name is Siobhan Haviland. She starts at the end of April. So if anybody should feel inclined with their hashtags to do hashtag BCC and name her, I think it's a really lovely announcement on International Women's Day.
Mary.
Thank you. I just would mention that Jessie Edwards has got a question. She's put her
Oh,
hand.
thank you, thank you. Okay,
That's
Jessie,
great.
over to you.
Oh, hello everyone. It's just a question for all the panelists, really. Obviously really inspirational from all of you, and really happy to be here. I guess being like a young woman myself and starting out in my career, I've been in recruitment for nearly 5 years. I just wondered what advice you would give your 26-year-old self.
Great question. Can we first go to Carol?
So that's a good question. I do wish I was 26 again, Jessie, so I'm very envious. So what I would say to you, and just going back to what Shayna said, I didn't go to university. It was all about being passionate about what I wanted to do. And, you know, if you know, the line of what you want to do is reach out and make sure, and especially during this time and the world's, we are going to be doing a lot of working from home. We are going to be using technology. It's embrace digital marketing and social media. Reach out to, you know, if I had the opportunity to have a mentor then, or somebody that I could speak to that was doing something that I was really interested in, that's what I would have really liked at the time. Because at 26, it was, well, where do I turn for help? You know, where could I actually make sure that I'm going in the right direction? And I think the advantage that, you know, yourself and others have, and hopefully, you know, the, you know, students that are coming out of university that may be thinking, well, what do I do now? Is that there are people like us ladies that are on this session that are available, you know, via LinkedIn or networking, which Heart Chambers do so well, to actually help and speak and help candidates like yourself. So it's really about reaching out for help, looking out and just keeping that focus. Don't get distracted on, oh, what somebody else is saying that I should be going that way, or because you can, there's so much different things that are around. Just keep the focus. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
And Cheryl, any observations from you?
I guess I would just say, I guess the most important thing is to try not to conform. And I think there's a lot of pressure on us. I think particularly when you're young, to try and conform and try and do the thing that you're supposed to do. And actually, I think you get much further in life when you don't try and conform and you try and find your own route, and try not to appeal to everybody, because not everybody is going to want to like what you do or what you offer, or how, you know, the way you do things. But actually, it's much better to get a few really good fans than, you know, be kind of liked by everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Cheryl. And to Shayna.
So I think my advice would be to never stop learning. I think at any point, doesn't matter what age you are, what stage you are at in your career, always continue to learn. There's always something new to learn, to read about, to understand. Have a plan. I think it, you know, even if your plan changes, that's fine, but always know what your next step is going to be. What's your next move? And if it changes, it doesn't matter, but always have some kind of a plan in place. And then the other thing is challenge yourself as well. don't ever just rest on your laurels. You always have to keep challenging yourself. And I think that also goes back to learning as well. And then the last thing that I wrote down was, and somebody said this to me a good few years ago, and it's really stuck with me: say yes to every opportunity, even if you're nervous, even if you're, you know, slightly concerned. Just say yes. If it's an opportunity, always say yes and always go for it, because you never know what else it could lead to and who you could meet. And be kind to people as well, I think. Always have integrity and, you know, treat people well, because you never know who you might meet at a later date.
Thank you all so much.
Brilliant. And I can see in chat, Laura Hyde has said, it was a great question, great advice. I love the always say yes. So there you go. So I have another question for all of the panelists, and I'm going to go in reverse order this time. And I hope it might resonate with everybody on the call today. I certainly put my hand up when I asked, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? You know, those little voices in your head that say, oh, you don't have the experience, you're not good enough, you're not old enough, you're not young enough, whatever it is. And I'm going to go back to Shayna, if I may, and say, have you ever experienced that?
Every day. Every day with myself. I think probably not so much sort of, you know, with other people, but I think with myself, I always question, you know, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing this? And, you know, I think for me, what works is I look back at sort of the journey that I've had to date, and I've sort of used that as a way of sort of qualifying myself and saying, well, actually, Shayna, you know, you've done all of these things, you've managed to achieve despite, you know, all of the obstacles that have been put in your way. So, and the other thing as well is that you've got to have your own internal validation and not look for validation externally. And I think that's really, really important.
Excellent. And can I go to Cheryl next? Imposter syndrome, is it something you felt or not really?
No, definitely, all the time. It's interesting actually, because you're kind of doing things, and all of a sudden I think it hits you like a brick, and you suddenly realize, oh, actually I don't think I can do that, but actually it's something you've done 100 times before, so of course you can do it. So yeah, I think we probably all suffer from it to a certain extent, and it is like the devil on your shoulder that we just need to get rid of, and just remember that we can do it. You know, it's not, there's nothing really holding us back, or there's nothing that should limit us really in what we can achieve.
And I think in saying that, Cheryl, have you ever had anybody, you know, colleagues in previous companies or even clients that say, you don't know how to do that, I know how to do this, I can look it up on the internet, or some such statement? Has anybody ever pushed back?
It's really interesting actually, Mary. I think when I first set the business up, I think I had a couple of members of staff that were maybe had quite corporate backgrounds, and I think they were a little bit like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be trying to do this, Cheryl. It was a bit sad because they were female as well, and I think sexism is not always men being sexist. Sometimes women, you know, are sexist as well. And I think, you know, I've always liked to run my business in a slightly different way. I've tried not to copy the corporates. I've tried to do things in the way that I think it will work. I think some of these people thought that actually I should be doing it in a certain way, I should be doing it in a different way, or the way that works, and not try and do things differently. So it's sad really, isn't it, that that sort of attitude still exists.
It does indeed. And I'm going to ask you another question before I go to Carol. Carol, I'm going to come to you about this imposter syndrome, but we've got a question from Jane Davidson. Can she ask, what tools have you implemented or used to motivate your teams now everyone is working remotely?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I think one of the key things about Wagado is we've always had a really strong team spirit. And I think when we went into lockdown, we thought this will be fine. We've got a really strong team spirit. We'll be able to keep that going. And actually, I think particularly last summer, there was a bit of a dip, and people did start to feel, you know, a little bit like we'd lost the team spirit. So I think one of the key things that we do that works really well is that we start the day every day with a team meeting at 9 o'clock. Which is great for getting some of the younger people out of bed. I think otherwise they wouldn't always get out of bed. But also it just kind of brings everyone together for the day and kind of grounds us all and reminds us that we work together as a team, and we're not not in this alone. And I think that's probably one of the key things that we've done that has really helped in lockdown, to remind people that we are there for each other.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cheryl. And Carol, I'm going to come to you. If you can answer those questions in reverse order, that would be fantastic. What do you do to keep your teams motivated during lockdown? I can see some of the comments where people say, I've really enjoyed having lockdown and I've had time for self-development, but other people really struggle. So, and any answers to that question?
Well, during the start of lockdown, we introduced teams within our business as opposed to we were using Slack before. So one of the things I set up was a daily update. So just a few words, good morning in the morning, to the team, reminding them to take a break, hydrate, and communicate. Those are my ending messages, just to make sure. And and then it was actually during that time, we got to know a lot about individuals. People were like posting pictures of their dogs, pictures of when they're going for walks. We didn't have a combined session, but we were small then, and we had group discussions about different things, and we pulled people together. Now we were acquired at the end of last year, so my team is starting to grow, and I'm going to answer the first question with regards to this imposter syndrome, because yes, it does exist, and as Shayna and Cheryl said, every day, and even more at the moment for me, because I've now moved from running a team of 14, now being part of a big corporate which has over 5,000 people dotted around the whole world. And it's I'm now moved from that, I'm the leader, quite comfortable knowing which process and having the autonomy to agree things straight away, to being in a senior position, but there's things that need to be followed in line with corporate. So again, I do each morning get up and think, oh my goodness, I've been asked to do this, and there's things that are now coming my way that I didn't think I'll be dealing with. But then again, like Shayna said, I sit back and think, well, look at my journey. I haven't got to where I am without, that kind of willingness just to keep on going and driving myself. And it's, as Cheryl says, you keep looking and saying, well, hold on a minute, you can do this. You've got this far. What of the task or what you're presenting with that you think you cannot do? And it is that little voice. And then once you've dealt with it, you kind of think, right, okay, bring it on. Let's go to the next one. So it always happens, and sometimes, and I think more for us women, because we do so much as it is. We have children, and we're responsible to make sure the children are kept fed. We grow them up. We're there to pick them up from schools if there's any emergencies. We're then the wife. And then we then have to think of, at the same time, having a career. And, to do all of those things and to want to be at the top of your game, it's quite, we do set ourselves some really, really hard challenges, and we do actually beat ourselves up if we don't do it. And the whole guilt of, am I spending enough time with my children versus I want to do so well in my career because I know my children are going to grow up soon, and I want to have a self being that, yes, I've been a mum, tick in the box. Yes, I am a good wife, tick in the box. And yes, I can be, that person that has an identity in work and in this, the specialist, job that and career that I want to be in. So it does become, that kind of self-doubt. But if you're authentic, and I always say, just be authentic to yourself. And sometimes it's, you rely on people looking in and saying, oh, you're such a cracking person. And then, but you personally to yourself, you just think, well, I'm just doing what I do because I do what I do. So yeah, it's exciting, but again, it's about the confidence as well.
Thank you, Carol. I'd like to bring in Janet Hayes, if I may. Janet, you've made some lovely observations in chat, and you were one of our speakers last year at our Women in Leadership Conference. Could you elaborate a little bit just for the audience about some of the research that you've done and the findings that I think you are finding echoed in the comments today?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that have been echoed, well, more than a couple of things, but I guess the two key ones are the seizing opportunities that Shayna talked about. I did MSc research for a master's at Henley Business School, and I interviewed women who had been successful in their careers, which often it's the case that people are interviewed who aren't. But one of the main facts that came out was that women had seized opportunities when they presented themselves. And it could be through others, so it could be through sponsors or mentors, but also sometimes almost purely by chance. You know, a corridor conversation led to an opportunity for them. And the other one that I'd also highlight is Carol, the point about authenticity. That is so important. And I think it helps women to be themselves, is actually helpful to succeed in this environment that we have, particularly in big corporates, I think, where there's often quite a lot of pressure not to be authentic. But being able to be authentic and to hold on to yourself and take care of yourself is really important in those environments, particularly, I think.
Excellent. And you had a question about whether any of the panelists had encountered discrimination and how they dealt with it. Can I go to Shayna to answer that question first?
You know, I'm trying to think. I saw that question in the chat, and I can't say that I have. And I think I've been very fortunate in actually, no, that's not true. I have. It's just come to me. I have. So I worked for a female a few years back, and being a mum at that time, to my son was still quite young, and I remember this particular lady. She wasn't a parent, and we'd been working consistently quite late for a few days on end, and it was fine. You know, my husband was at home and was sort of like taking care of things. But I think that this particular woman had just completely forgotten the fact that I was a mum, and I was sort of like coming in really, really early, going home really, really late. And at one point I was sort of like, look, I'm sorry, I've not seen my son for a few days now because I'm getting home so late. Like, I need to leave on time this evening. And I think in terms of discrimination, I think that was sort of probably, you know, that particular person not being a parent herself and not understanding the commitment as a working mother, in terms of, you know, you want to be there for, you know, for your work and to be a team player and all the rest of it, but you also do have commitments at home. And I did feel discriminated against when at that point when I said, look, no, enough's enough, I need to be home at a reasonable hour tonight because I want to see my son. And it was sort of like, oh, okay. So that, you know, that was difficult, but at some point you just have to say, no, enough's enough.
Exactly. And I think that resonates with the answer we had on the first poll, which is what's the biggest challenge? Yeah. And it's that work-life balance, regardless of whether, I suppose, some people have children or not, we still need to have balance in life, because all of a sudden you're one thing and nothing else. Can I come to Cheryl with the same question? Have you ever encountered discrimination, and how did you deal with it?
It's interesting. I think the sort of discrimination that I face is more the sort of unconscious bias. And I think we're probably not aware really of the amount of times that we're suffering from unconscious bias sort of every single day. I think some of the kind of things that have happened, for example, so yeah, actually about 6 months ago, someone called me ruthless, which I thought was quite interesting, because anyone who knows me will know that I'm the least ruthless person ever. But I think in their minds, because I was being decisive and having opinions and, you know, making difficult decisions, that made me ruthless. But I think as a man, that wouldn't have made me ruthless. You know, it's because I wasn't maybe necessarily being feminine enough, and that, you know, that then classed me as being ruthless. I think we face that sort of thing a lot, particularly when you get strong women in certain industries, such as sales, the sort of sales industry where you have to be strong, that those women kind of get labeled with being ruthless, or, you know, being hard-nosed or being too loud, etc. And I think the other way that I tend to feel that I kind of see a little bit of discrimination or unconscious bias is about sort of 2.5 years ago, I took on Nick, so my commercial director. So he's a man, he's about 10 years older than me, and everybody always assumes that it's his business. And so I have been in meetings actually where I've been trying to have a conversation with a client or a potential client, and I will ask a question and they will turn to Nick to give the answer. And it's happened consistently every single time I ask a question. After a while, you can see Nick senses it, and he starts to feel uncomfortable as well. So yeah, it's quite funny, but it's quite sad as well, I think.
Oh, incredible, Cheryl. Thank you for being so honest and sharing that. Probably a few people have experienced that as well. I can see discrimination has come up as quite an interesting topic with comments in chat. But we've got a question from Claire Howard. I can see your hand up, Claire. I'd love you to come off mute and ask your question, please.
Hello everyone, happy International Women's Day in advance. So I, being a woman in construction like Carol, I've been in construction for 17 years and in a technical role, and now I'm a planner, and I have a fairly senior position within the company I work for, and my frustrations are similar to Cheryl's in that I do face some unconscious bias fairly regularly, and you know, I've had various things happen, people calling me good girl and things like that, and the occasional people assuming I don't have any technical knowledge because I'm a woman, and that sort of thing. And I do sometimes feel like I'm a walking CV, like I have to consistently justify to people that I have experience, I have been, you know, I've done this work, I have this technical knowledge, I have, you know, and I do find myself having to tread that really fine line between representing myself as being a senior person in the business and without treading on too many fragile egos, should I put it that way? And I just wondered how the panel, how they tread that line, or if that's a line that they indeed also have to tread.
Excellent question, Claire. And I think first I'll go to Carol because you're working in the same industry.
Yeah, Claire, I can only sympathise with you, but there again, I will say to you, hold your head up. You are experienced at what you do, and your knowledge will never be taken away from you. I do hear this quite often, especially within the construction sector. A female project manager will turn up and the guys on site will, you know, kind of, well, I'm not taking instructions from her. And I hear that come up so often, but it's standing, you know, standing your ground and doing what you do very well, and just, you know, it's easy to say to block it out, but it is a thing in construction that is challenging. Now, for me, whilst I'm not actually working out on, you know, in a construction business, I worked in a construction, my first step into construction technology. The discrimination I had was being part of a sales team in one of my latter roles before I actually left that business. And I had a target given to myself. And because over the 13 years of being in that business, I built up a really good relationship with the external clients, our customers. And as a result of that, I then became their trusted advisor. And as a trusted advisor, they used to place orders. So I became the highest salesperson in the business. And as a result of that, the guys that were the sales execs with the targets that weren't achieving, they just saw that as, oh, who does she think she is? And it made it very difficult. You know, for me, as you know, I was just doing what I do and wanting to obviously prove that I could do it because, you know, I was competing against, you know, the suited and booted guys. And, you know, what happened one year, I actually smashed my target, and I remember clearly on the Christmas Eve when everyone, or the day before Christmas Eve, everyone had left the office, and I remembered my line manager calling me into the boardroom and saying to me, I need to talk to you about the commission on that deal. It was the biggest deal that had been bought in that year. And he said, do you really think that you should be getting that commission? Because that would mean you'd get paid more than me that year. So it was not what I was expecting. And you know, it actually threw me back in that thinking, well, hold on a minute, you know, I've just done something that took me a whole year to engage with the client. But what I did, Claire, was, you know, I think I reversed it round and made him feel more comfortable and said to him, well, what do you think? You know, if you were sitting in my seat, how would you feel if I came in and asked you that question? And I just said, look, I really don't want to have this discussion. Let's have a great Christmas and end on a high. And I, you know, and I left the room, and, you know, 6 months later, I left the business, but neither here or there. But, you know, at the end of the day, I stood my ground. But that was the sort of things where, you know, it's ego, where, you know, individuals just will try and make your life difficult, but you've just got to see beyond it. And I love to follow up with you outside of this session, Claire, because, you know, there's some other forums with some other ladies like yourself that, you know, we've put up some mentoring sessions as well to help each other. So I'd love to catch up with you outside of this session, if that will help.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Oh, what an excellent connection. You're really giving me goosebumps. But I want to thank a number of people. If you have had the opportunity to look at chat, we've got wonderful observations and experiences from Miriam, from Pippa, Helen. But Tori, you've really just grabbed my heart, because you've mentioned in your comment that I think it is your son, your 11-year-old son is at the opticians, but he just came back, or you're with him and you're listening to us. And he said, quote unquote, "These people around sound amazing, Mum. I've never realized how much women have to juggle. You're all very clever." Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, Tori. Thank you for sharing that. We've only got a few minutes left. And again, thank you to Janet. Diane has made comments, and more from Helen. But I've got a question that I think we could all do with on a slightly lighter note, because there's some really heavy topics we all have to deal with during lockdown at this time. And I'm going to come to Cheryl first and say, Cheryl, when you're not leading a team of 14, when you're not trying to deal with unconscious bias and the challenges of homeschooling and what do you do to unwind?
Well, interesting question. I actually I bought a hot tub just at the beginning of lockdown, so I've actually got it on now, so it's warming up nicely for tonight. So that's one of the things that I like to do. I like to hang out in my hot tub, but I also have an allotment, which is very messy, as you can imagine. I've got a lot of weeds growing because I don't get a lot of time to go to it, but I do love going into the allotment and just spending a bit of time on my own in the peace and quiet with my plants. Looking at them, you know, I like to create. I like to, you know, you get fruit and vegetables. You know, it feels quite creative. I really like it.
Brilliant. Shayna, same question. Very busy juggling all the things that you've got on, and 2 companies and children and relationships. What do you do to unwind?
So I like to walk. I like to go for walks, and just sort of like, you know, not look at my phone, not answer text messages or any of that sort of stuff. Just, you know, really go for walks and just empty my head. And I actually find meditation really, really helpful as well. So especially when I'm sort of feeling really, really stressed, I try to sort of meditate once a day, even if it's just 10 minutes. For me, I find that really helps to sort of reset my mind, empty my head for a bit, and then usually if I do it in the morning, it means that I can sort of set myself up for the day ahead.
Excellent top tips. And to Carol, how do you unwind and relax?
Well, I'll be lying to you if I didn't say I had a nice gin and tonic in my hands as part of it. But actually, Cheryl, I'm like you. I like planting, so I've got a greenhouse. So I like growing things. So, and then I lock myself into my greenhouse, and that's my quiet time. But again, like Sean, I do like, you know, regimentally this year, And I've tried to tell my team as well. I actually put the headphones in at 1 o'clock and I actually leave the house, and I've put one of these walking apps, and I actually just go out for a walk for at least 45 minutes to clear my head. And it's actually really, really worked, because it switches me off completely. And I like all of us, we're all working from home. We can find that we're just constantly on the screen. But after I've done that walk, I come back and I just feel like, you know, a fresh start to the afternoon. So that helps me unwind as well. So that's what I do, Mary.
Thank you. I think we can all take something from all of those observations. In a very quick poll, we'd like to ask you all a question. Please, if we can have the question up. It is leading on from the conference that we had last year at Sopwell House. Can you have it all? Career, family, home, social life. Yes, no, or unsure. Please, could you submit your answers now? And while we're tallying all of those votes, I would like you to have pen or pencil in front of you and dedicate this date to your diary, please. Hot off the press, nobody else yet knows. It's now being launched. Our next Women in Leadership event conference, drum roll, will take place on the 25th of February, 2022 at Sopwell House Hotel. For those that you were there, you understand what a powerful event that is, bringing together a whole collection of women from across industries, from across the county. We've got lots of people that have been there that can express how important and interesting it is. So sign up. We did sell out last year. Really important event. Love, love, love to see you there. So the results of our poll, please, Sarah. Can you have it all? 82% of people say yes. I think that's such a resounding positive message to take away from our event today. Thank you so much for participating. I've got a couple of announcements, but surely I'd love to say thank you very much to Julia Bunting, to Carol Massey, to Cheryl Luzette, to Shayna Doherty, but to all of you. I applaud all of you. Of course, the official day for International Women's Day is Monday, March the 8th. We're a little bit ahead of the curve. I'm sure you'll have lots of other things to celebrate. But without you, without the support, and not just the women, we've had men participating on the call today. We're a blended environment, diversity, inclusion, all of those things are so important. All you have to do is listen to my accent and realize we've got a little bit of diversity on this call. So thank you so much for your support. A couple of other dates, and just to let you know, our Inspiring Hearts Business Awards have been rescheduled to the 9th of September, and they will be at Warner Brothers. Really looking forward to that. Also, there is a general networking event taking place on the 10th of March. We'd love to see you there. They're really popular. On the 14th of October at Rothamsted Enterprises, we've got a well-being conference, and I feel I have to slow down to talk about well-being. It's ever so important right now. Again, lots of messages in chat. I can see people have enjoyed it. Please keep talking, connect with one another. We'll see you at events soon. We wish you a really pleasant weekend, and thank you so much for your participation.